Hey everybody, Alex Newman here with the New American. Thank you for joining us. We have a very special guest today. You guys know education is close to my heart. It's a real passion of mine because I think it is the critical issue on which all the other issues depend. And so with us today, we have Rhonda Thomas. She has been involved for 20 years on the political scene in Georgia. She's been in the pro-family movement. She has been lobbying. She's been working with legislators to try to get some of this critical race theory and social emotional learning and all sorts of stuff out of the school system. She is also the president of Truth in Education, an organization founded to try to fix the education system and ensure that our children are not brainwashed, if you will, with the progressive worldview and turned away from their faith and their morals and the views of their parents. Rhonda, thank you for being with us, and tell us, how did you get involved in education? Why do you see this as so important?
Thank you, Alex. I got involved in education quite a few years ago, not only through the political scene, but through being an advocate for parents when they needed that in the school system. And then the past 4 years, I've been involved in educating legislators and parents on the comprehensive sex ed that's in our schools, the critical race theory once it came on the scene, and also the social emotional learning. So I felt really passionate about it. I thought God called me to this. I had so many parents coming and very concerned. So we've been very involved in educating them, helping them work with their school boards, finding school board members. We're just doing everything we can to really assist these parents because they're in a very difficult situation. And we're seeing their children propagandized through all this. And it really is a Marxist agenda. Not only is the critical race theory Marxism, but the comprehensive sex ed is too, because Marxism is all about separation of family, breaking down the country, and what is key to our country? It's our family. So they're using this agenda along with critical race theory and social emotional learning to really destroy our family and destroy the country, to rebuild it back into what they want it to be. And if we didn't know God was in control, we would say that they're winning when we're looking at all that's happening within our schools. But we know they're not. So we need to stand up against this. We need to continue to work with our lawmakers to pass legislation. There's something in Georgia, Alex, that I think might surprise you. Did you know if you gave my child a piece of pornography that you would be put in jail? Yet our children can go in their media centers at school, go through their filtered database, and access pornography, access soft porn, hard porn, torture sex, BDSM, kink, all kinds of information that should never touch their hands. I actually went to the GBI in Georgia and was told that pornography is legal in Georgia, and as long as the teacher is not leading them there, there's nothing they can do about it. Well, our taxpayers dollars should not be paying for that. Would you agree? And also,
No question about it.
there are 43 states that our school systems are exempt from the obscenity law. So that is really harming us also. It's making it very difficult to get a bill passed. We have so many, educrats have lots of money and lots of power. So the American Library Association, all different organizations are coming against it. So every time our bill goes forward, it gets watered down. And so therefore, we haven't been able to accomplish that yet. So we're working on legislation to close that loophole to protect our children. And we're trying to actually, again, educate parents and legislators on what's happening within our schools. So this whole agenda, our children are under attack from every area, and we know the ultimate goal is control. So social emotional learning is huge. They are really working hard at breaking down our children's values, their attitudes, anything that they can do to be able to remold their minds into what they want them to be. In fact, I think using the word unlearned is a big thing. They really want to unlearn everything that our children have been taught so that they can then teach them the left propaganda, the leftist agenda. So no one loves our children like we do, Alex, and we have got to stand up. We cannot sit back on this one. We're going to lose if we do. And so I'm trying to build a fire. A lot of people are, not just my group, many groups are involved. We know that. You're involved. So we so appreciate your opening up your airways and that you have such a heart for this, for education. So,
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing and all that you're doing, Rhonda. So let's talk about the sex education component, because I think there's still this kind of naivete out there. Parents might have gone to school in the 70s and maybe it wasn't, great. Maybe there was some raunchy stuff, but don't kids need to learn how to put on condoms and birth controls and things like that? What's the problem with sex education? How is that going to transform our children's attitudes? How is that going to undermine the family?
well, actually, what it's going to do, Alex, is it's actually removing their inhibitions, but so they're coming very comfortable with it. And because of that, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is sex trafficking. It, I believe, ranks above drug trafficking at the money that it makes. We are grooming our children for sex trafficking and for pedophilia. We are relaxing any type of relaxing their inhibitions. We're filling them, teaching them in second grade how to have oral sex, teaching them in kindergarten that you're not born a boy or a girl. It's how you feel, what you think. So they're conditioning them, they're grooming them. And so we know from Alfred Kinsey, right, that all this started years ago with all the research that he did. And that's how we've ended up where we are today. And he had a lot of control over changing our laws when it came to criminality against sex, like rape and all kinds of things. So we are seeing the ages drop, right? In California, you can have sex with anyone as long as there's no more than 10 years apart. So there are a lot of laws being placed. In fact, I believe there is actually an agenda to put the letter P at the end of LGBTQT. That is the next agenda. So we have got to stop this now. We have got to protect our children from this. And I believe because of that, I had a grandmother that came up to me the other day and said her grandchildren are in middle school and won't have anything to do with her because they call her homophobic. So we are really brainwashing our children in a way that is going to definitely divide the country. And Marxism has been after this for a long time. And so the critical race theory goes right along with all of this because that's part of their agenda. And this all started with the UN through UNESCO. Our national sexuality standards are not even our standards. They were written by UNESCO, but yet all our schools have adopted them. So we need to be educated, we need to be aware, and we need to stand up, and we need to fight against this for our children. This is the next generation. We see the military being filled with wokeness and critical race theory. We're doing it on the younger end, and it's going to meet in the middle, and it isn't going to be a good thing. So we really do have to stand up against this ideologies that they are pushing. Social emotional learning is really about conformity of thought and control. So they shock them, I believe, with this comprehensive sex ed. I think they shock them so much with a lot of the things that they see that it does break down their values. That's just one of the methods they're using to do this.
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
just.
Yeah, we've got about a minute left before we go to break, Rhonda. And when we get back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about what we can do to stop the tide, this torrent of indoctrination and abuse that's being perpetrated against our children. I know one of the things that Truth in Education does, your organization, is educate school board members and legislators. I want to talk when we get back about what parents can do, maybe get a little bit more detail on social emotional learning. I think there's really not a broad understanding of what this means. I think parents are just now finally starting to realize that there's something wrong with this, but they can't quite put their finger on it. So when we get back from the break, we'll talk a bit more about social emotional learning, and then finally what parents can do, what legislators can do to stem the tide of this increasingly ubiquitous evil in our public school systems. I mean, it's gotten out of control. It's having absolutely devastating effects on our children. We're seeing them turn against their families. So, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking with us. Alex Newman here with the New American, and we are with Rhonda Thomas. She's the president of Truth in Education, and she's involved in so many of these battles involving the education system. Rhonda, before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about social emotional learning. Break it down for us. What is social emotional learning? What is it designed to do? 'Cause, when you read the marketing materials, it just sounds so nice. It's just to help our children develop empathy and to have good social skills and to be able to interact and communicate properly. What could be wrong with that?
It sounds good, doesn't it, Alex?
Mhm.
And that's the way it's promoted through our education system. I heard just recently a superintendent say this is nothing more than allowing the teachers or showing the teachers how they can work with each child based on their personality, their behavior, and where to find help for them. But we know it goes beyond that. In fact, SEL is a politically correct agenda, and it includes are the actual vehicle to promote an authoritarian agenda, which is control of everybody's language. So if you think about social, emotional, and learning, even the social distancing during COVID played into this, and the wearing the mask. If you social distance someone, you've isolated them, right? If you isolate them, you bring in anxiety, you bring in stress, you bring in depression. These children have been conditioned through that we see a lot of suicides, right, through what has happened through COVID. If you go to every county's and you check the statistics on suicide, it's on the rise with children. So if you isolate people and you isolate children, then that is where their knowledge comes from, is through relationships. That's where their confidence comes in. That's everything is relationship. God created us for relationships. So when you isolate them, you have further broken them down in order, again, that they're more pliable to put all of this propaganda into them and to condition them. So it's about their language, it's about their behavior, and relationships are a really big key part of this. So if they can separate families, again, they have more control of that child. It is so it's almost subliminal the way they do it. You can't find it in the schools other than shares a survey or you do open records. But a lot of it is done in such a way that it's a very difficult thing for parents to get their hands around. In fact, I had a legislator tell me it's psychobabble. And I'm like, it really isn't. That's what it seems like, but it isn't. It's being used in a very evil way, actually. So we need to be very careful. Social isolation is huge in it. Political correctness and conformity of thought, and just the ripple effect that comes from all of that is huge with our children. They're all about relationship. They're all about learning, and we're stifling all those things. So it really is harming them.
Yeah, no question about it. And one of the things that you and your organization have done and are working on, Rhonda, from what I understand, is you're working with legislators to draft some legislation on this. In fact, I understand you guys have already started this process. Tell us about the legislation and tell us, do you really think that's going to be effective? Just to throw this out there, here in Florida, I'm in Florida, we passed legislation to ban critical race theory. The governor signed it. It is officially against the law to brainwash children with critical race theory. And yet all the districts have already purchased these books that are filled to the brim with critical race theory propaganda. You have teachers now going on social media bragging that they're going to teach critical race theory regardless of the ban. There's really no enforcement mechanism. What kind of legislation are you guys working on? Is it something that other states might consider? And do you really think it's going to be effective in stopping this?
I think the legislation that has been drafted and submitted is very strong. It has teeth, but it's not the only thing we need. We're going to have parents doing what they're doing now. It's going to take a lot of different methods. I think the law is very important because we have something to fall back on. We have something to say you can't do this. But there's going to be a battle uphill because I have 800 pages of Black Lives Matter curriculum, and it's all about this. Advocates for youth. They're teaching our children how to have how to start riots, how to get out of jail. All these organizations have their fingers in our schools with the sex ed and the activism. So we are teaching our children to be activists, and then we also have rogue teachers, right? And so we have all these teachers that I think we're going to have a struggle with because they're going to want to teach this anyway. So, but thank goodness we're going to have some bills and some laws that we can fall back on and hold them accountable. So I think that is a huge part of it. And I'm seeing a lot of states, and I would think most all states are going to end up with legislation against this. So, but I still think the parents have to keep fighting. They cannot quit because, as you said, this is so deep. It's in every bit of the curriculum. It's not just the school. It's in our military, our government, our CDC, transportation. It's in everything. They're even doing everything by equity now. So this is not going to be an easy thing to accomplish, but we know we can do it. And we've got to keep that hope, right? We've got to keep that hope and keep moving forward.
Well, let me throw you a curveball, Rhonda. I mean, let's say that we were somehow able to pass legislation. Let's say we could wave a magic wand and suddenly, poof, CRT is gone, SEL is gone, the radical sex ed is gone. Would you say then the public schools would be safe places for parents to send their children, and would they be able to have trust in this system that their children are going to be educated properly? That I mean, the federal government's own data shows that less than a third of our children in the government school system can even proficient read, math, writing. Is it wise for parents to send their children to public schools, even if we could get rid of all this stuff? I mean, just forget the CRT and the sex ed. Would it still be okay if we could get rid of those?
So, Alex, I think the public schools will still be in trouble, even once this is all removed. We know it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years, really. The other thing is we, for quite a few years now, have been dumbing down our children. Our schools have moved from academic more into behavioral. So that's why our math, our science, our reading, we don't score well because we've intentionally dumbed them down. I believe personally that we're creating a workforce, and our workforce does not need a lot of highly educated people, but you do need people that you can control, right? You can control their thoughts. So I believe that it's going to take quite a few years to actually fix the public schools. There's so much involved in getting that done. So it's not legislation. I believe the public schools are in trouble, and revamping them and starting over is going to take years because our children are really far behind too. So how do you catch them up? They're even behind just from this 1 year that they've been out for COVID, but really they have been behind for quite a few years. We do not score well worldwide. And as you were saying, our reading, writing, and even arithmetic. How do you get back to that in a short period of time and catch up? I just don't think you do. I think we're in big trouble with the public schools.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you. I think it's a disaster that's getting worse by the moment. Rhonda, in the last 30 or 40 seconds that we have left here, please tell us, where can people find your organization? Give us your website. How can people get in touch if they want to get involved? And how can people replicate these things in their own state?
They can reach me through the website at truthineducation.org. I also have an email, info@truthineducation.org, and I would love to work with them. And we do a lot of training. We want people to be able to move out into their counties, their states. So I would love to speak with anyone that's interested in learning more.
All right, Rhonda Thomas, folks, thank you so much. Truth in Education. Take care, folks, and God bless you all.